Today we are going to be covering the technical uses of live ZScore training. Today we're going to, as a brief overview, we're going to cover some of the different facets of the ZScore training that the BrainAvatar software can do. We're going to go over different controls, different ways to change different settings, and some different features that are built into the BrainAvatar live ZScore training style of training. Now, one of the things I do want to cover right off the bat is some different resources that you do have available for you, other than, of course, this webinar that we have right here. The first one I'm going to show you is, of course, by opening up our BrainAvatar software right here. And when we are located in the BrainAvatar software, we're going to click our product manuals, and we're going to go to BrainAvatar documentation. This has a lot of information right here on many of the different things that I am covering right here. I'm going to be covering things that are brought to you in the Event Wizard, as well as some of the things that are just in the main BrainAvatar user manual. Now, as most of you guys know, I have not gotten a chance to update the BrainAvatar user manual before this latest release of software got out. So, because of that, you can actually download that at a different location. And that is going to be right here on our main brainm.com home site. If you go right here to BrainMaster's software downloads and updates, and you go to BrainAvatar software and downloads and updates, the latest version of our user manual is located right here. So you can download that and read it. It's a good read. It's about 187 pages. So, nice, easy to read. You're going to notice there's a lot of pictures. I help try and walk through things like that, but of course I'm always looking to improve it, so the next one may be built a little differently. Another resource that you have for you as far as training goes and all that is our YouTube training videos. After every webinar that we do, we always put up our webinars right here so that you can download them, just in case I go a little too quick or you're trying to take different notes and things like that, that you can always go back to that. And you can then really look at what you really need and get a little bit more in detail on it. Now, another thing I'm going to get you as a final piece of thing that might help you a little bit right now is a sister company of ours, Stress Therapy Solutions. They've been taking some of the different webinars that we've been doing over here, and they've been doing some of them as well. And some of the different webinars that they have actually go on the live ZScore training as well. Those are complimentary ones that they have, but they also have some paid ones that you can get right here. And you'll be able to get those all on this video webinar page right here, which is taking a little bit of time to load, and that's because I'm trying to film my screen as well as recording it, as well as trying to load different Java files and all that. So sometimes it can go a little boggy right now, but it looks like it's popping up. For example, you're going to notice free webinars that Stress Therapy Solution has is 19-channel PZOK on Discovery for 4.0. They also have a 4-channel version of that. But they have many ones that actually do have some pay. They're going to help you with the clinical aspect of doing the live ZScore training, whereas I have no clinical background, I can only kind of help you with the technical portion of it. The final place that you have for some different tools of what can help you is, of course, the technical support department with BrainMaster Technologies. The main technical support line is area code 440-232-6000, and option 3 will get you the main technical support line. If you dial extension 207, you will get Ashley Johnson over here in technical support. And if you dial 211, you will get me in technical support. And of course, depending on the questions and depending on the things and all that you got going on, and we'll be more than happy to help you as much as we possibly can. Now, one of the things that I'm going to start off with, and since I'm in the software, I might as well kind of just start going into it right off the bat. I'm going to go File. I'm going to go Import Settings. Now, you're going to notice if you have the BrainAvatar 4.4.1 software, there were a lot of changes that we've initialized into them, and I've covered some of those in the What's New in the BrainAvatar 4.4.1 webinar, which should be going online here shortly. I'm going to kind of go over those a little bit more too, and some of the ones actually that I didn't cover on it. One of the things that you're going to notice that's a little different in the BrainAvatar 4.4.1 software is you're going to notice that you probably have 2 new file folders when you go to import a setting file that weren't there before. You're going to notice there are ones that are called Atlantis protocols, and there are ones that are called Discovery protocols. You're going to also notice that you probably have a whole bunch of them right out here outside the software as well. Either which way you load which protocols you want, you can. I recommend using the ones inside the file folders. Now, there is a reason that we have them outside the file folders too, and that's because the classic way of using the read/write settings files don't see those settings when they're inside directories like that. But I personally like the file folder system. It keeps your protocols a little bit more organized, and you can have them with different styles. You can even go through subdirectories if you really wanted to, making ZScores or making BrainDx ZScores and other things like that. Now, in the Discovery Protocols folders, you're going to notice we're going to start with these four right here. You're going to notice there are four protocols. One is ZScore PZOK or PZOK-ANI, ZScore PZOK-BrainDx, ZScore PZOK-UL ANI, and ZScore PZOK-UL BrainDx. Now, there's a reason that we have two different protocols for ANI, or one for ANI and one for BrainDx. And that is, even though there aren't many differences anymore in the software, the way that we've developed the software, you can literally run an ANI protocol and switch it to BrainDx, or run a BrainDx protocol and switch it to ANI, and you won't even miss a beat. It's just going to go. But there's a reason for it. And that is, we want to try and keep it as concise and clear as possible for you guys. So if you're going to utilize the BrainDx ZScore Training DLL on somebody, I recommend, of course, using PZOK-BrainDx. And if you're going to use ANI, do the same thing. There are different things that we put in there to help you keep track of which one you're doing. For example, in the comment, when you load BrainDx, it's going to have in brackets right there, BrainDx. And if I go File, Import Settings, Discovery Protocol, we go ANI, and we hit our setup button. You're going to see it now says ANI. To help keep track, basically, just so you know which ZScore DLL training DLL you're utilizing, and you don't lose track of what's going on or who's using what or what's going on in any way, shape, or form. But the actual training themselves is not much different. Now, you may also be asking yourself a question, well, what's the difference between PZOK and PZOK-UL? Well, in order to really answer that one, let's get into taking a look at this protocol right here. And let's look at the training screen so that we can see exactly what the differences are between those two protocols right there. There is not that much of a difference. So here we go. We're going to get our session started. We got our simulation. Now let's go to ZScore PZOK or PZOK training screen. And this is what it's going to look like right here. Most people have probably seen this screen. Some of you guys have not seen this screen. But let me explain to you the basics of it. In this top portion right here is where the PZOK training basically is doing its magic. This light blue line right here that's going across the screen and going up and down and up and down and up and down are the percent of Z-scores that are within a declared threshold range. And that is how we do our ZScore training. It's PZOK. It's the percent of Z-scores that are okay, if you will. And right now we're saying on this screen right here, if our Z-scores are above this green line right here, which is our threshold that is controlled by the C key, that's going to control everything. You're going to get a MIDI sound that's going to be rewarded back to you. The reward sounds are going to kind of happen with it. If you're using a multimedia player or a DVD happening, you're going to be able to have that as feedback. Or if you're using BMR Flash player, that's also going to be rewarded whenever this turquoise line is going to go above the green line. You're also going to notice this red line right here. Well, this red line right here is basically the percent success of the ZScore training. So how often it's actually successful, the turquoise line is above the green, is how this is going to be moving. And as you can see right now by this thermometer, we're at about 34%. And of course you can adjust that, or you can make that easier on the person with the C key right off the bat. If I hit the C key one time, you're going to notice that right here it has increased by 1%. Or the amount of Z-scores that we're looking at by 1%. If I hold the Shift key down and hit the C button, it is going to lower it by 1%. If I continue to hold the Shift key down and hit the C, I can continue to lower it. Or if I just let go of the C key or Shift key and hit the C key a couple times, it'll basically bring it back up. Now, you got to be asking yourself, for those who are very new to Z-scores, well, how do I know, how does this tell me what the percent of Z-scores that are okay? Where am I getting the threshold for what range I'm looking at? And you're going to get that actually right down here where you see this Z-score threshold. Right now it says 1.89. Now what 1.89 means in a PZOK protocol is that that's looking at 1.89 standard deviations plus or minus. So as opposed to having two individually controlled Z-score thresholds like you do in the PZOK UL, which we'll go over next, you only have one. That means one controls it all. This threshold can be adjusted two different ways actually. In the BrainAvatar software, the U key is going to raise my threshold by 0.1 or 1/10 of a standard deviation, and holding the shift key down and hitting the U key is going to lower it by 1/10 of a standard deviation. Or, thanks to one of the new tricks we built into the software, if I click this little thermometer thing right here and I move this, it is going to raise my threshold or lower it right here. So I don't even have to use the hotkeys on this should I not want to. I can actually use the drag and drop feature of it right here. So the biggest thing about PZOK that's nice, one threshold. The downfall of it is that your positive, your upper standard deviation and your lower standard deviation are both the same. So you have no control over the difference between them. So that is a PZOK training right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the software. I'm going to open my software again. This time we're going to look at a PZOK UL training. The difference with this one is now it says UL, which stands for upper and lower. So that's why the difference in the names. PZOK is just your standard PZOK. PZOK UL, upper, lower. So this time I'm going to grab a BrainDx one. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to go Setup. I'm going to go to my session control. I'm going to set it to simulation. I'm going to hit go. And now let's look at my ZScore training screen. Now you're going to notice that this screen right here actually looks very, very, very similar to the last previous ZScore screen that we had right there. Up here, you got your ZScore, PZOK UL that's going on up here, and it's popping along. And my C key is exactly the same, so I'm holding the Shift C and it's going down, and I'm hitting the C and it's going up. And you're going to notice that right down here is where the biggest difference is. You have an upper threshold and you have a lower threshold. That is the only difference between ZOK and ZOK UL. ZOK, one threshold, one upper and lower standard deviation basically that you can control on this. ZOK UL, on the other hand, you have an upper threshold which can be controlled by the U key or the Shift U key, or, as I said before, the thermometer. And then you have a lower threshold that's independent that can be controlled by the L key. By hitting it, it goes up 1/10 of a standard deviation. And then the Shift L key, which hitting that will lower it 0.1/10 of or 1/10 of a standard deviation. Or, once again, I can control it with my thermometer right here. So that is the only real difference between those two. Once again, ZOK, one threshold, no variation on it. ZOK UL, two thresholds. Now you have a varied upper and lower. Now you got to ask yourself, why would I want to do that? Well, maybe when it comes down to it, that you want to focus on maybe thresholds that are, or maybe you have higher Z-scores that you really want to focus on. So you really don't want to look as low as you're looking. You can actually technically with this have a focus on positive standard deviations in both range. Is that going to be really relevant for you? It might not be, but that's where it really comes in. The two thresholds gives you a little bit more flexibility to control where you want to look at your bottom and where you want to look at your top. Maybe you have a whole lot of higher Z-scores, but you don't want to focus on a lot of the lowers. Well, you got that kind of play that you can do with it. So that's really where the only difference comes in on them. So now what I'm going to do And I wanted to kind of go over those differences because a lot of people get confused and don't know the differences between ZOK and ZOK-UL. So that's why I really wanted to hit home with that and really show you just the really simplest difference that goes in between those two. But now, okay. So now what I want to do is, now that we kind of know our difference between ZOK and ZOK-UL, what I want to do is I want to go through some abilities to change surface Z-scores and things like that, and where you change the settings. You know, right off the bat, the protocol is defaulted to do C3, P3, C4, P4. Not everybody wants to train those things. Some people have 19 channel Z-scores and want to train 19 channels. And you have the abilities to take this protocol and basically use it to customize for the patient that you're in. And it's actually really easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my settings tab right here. And the first place I want to go to is the acquisition tab. This is where you're going to say what you're acquiring. And what you're acquiring is going to base what you're doing your Z-score training off of. So, for example, if I wanted to stick with 4 channels and I just wanted to move these C sites to F sites, that's fine. You can do that. But before you can continue, you need to make sure you double check your Z-scores and make sure you're collecting the right Z-scores at this point in time. So after you would change a site on this one, you would then go to the Z-scores tab. And as you can see right now, it's saying it wants to train C3 and C4 in the LZT train because that's what we were last doing. So it's basically, you know, not forgetting or not remembering that we just switched these. We have to tell it what it's doing. So I'm going to hit remove all, and I'm going to hit add all. Now we are training the proper sites that we want to do for our LZT training. So that's one of the things you would do. And to go even further, if we wanted to do 19 channel Z-score training, and so I have my discovery setting, and I hit my standard settings, which is going to reset to factory defaults, which is going to be the standard 1020 connections right there. FPZ and OZ do not have Z-scores. For the record, everybody out there, if you call me up on technical support problem and say your OZ Z-scores are all 0, I'm going to say yes, they are. But so standard settings are going to be what you want to hit if you want to do 19 channel Z-score training. But once again, after we do a change on this site, we got to go back to our Z-scores. So then we're going to hit remove all and add all. But what just happened right there? I'm only seeing 4 Z-scores over here. Why am I not getting all 19 channels? I want to add them all over there. So as I was saying right here, FP, F3, C3, P3, that doesn't make sense. I want 19 channel Z-scores training. Once again, you're going to have to tell the software you want to do 19 channel Z-score training. On this screen, you're going to notice right here under Z-score options, you have to choose between 4 channels and 19 channels. Once I hit 19 channels, then I hit add all. Well, now I'm going to get all my LZT trained over here. So now I'm going to be at 19 channels, and now life is going to be good on that. So when it comes down to standard surface style Z-score training, the most important thing is to say is ZOK and ZOK-UL, same, except ZOK-UL has an upper and lower threshold. Any changes you do to your protocol, make sure you always double check your Z-scores and make sure you have them set properly to what you have changed to, and that if you're doing 19 channels and you're not getting the right results, double check to make sure you got 19 channels checked. Okay? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run this in simulation real quick after I have now changed this to 19 channels, and we can basically go and look at some of the biggest differences that occur with this. So of course, one of the biggest differences is on this page where you used to see 4, you see 19. You're not going to really see that much of a difference, except for one thing. You're going to notice that usually this screen right here is going to be a little bit flatter than what you notice maybe with 4 channels or even 9 channels or even anything less than 19 channels. And there is a reason for that, and that is because of the amount of Z-scores that we're really looking at. You're getting a lot of Z-scores going on. There's over almost 5,000 Z-scores that's computating right now, and it's basically asking us what's going within this range right here. Very, 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 very powerful. But just notice that sometimes you're going to have a lot of Z-scores that affect it. And because you're going to have a lot of Z-scores that affect it, there's going to be a lot less play or a lot less jumping that you're going to notice on it. So if you see this nice even-keeled wave like you're seeing on my screen right now, that's normal. That's exactly what happens when you're looking at a larger amount of Z-scores that are occurring on it. Now, let's go to the ZScore Monitor page. Now, I really didn't show anybody any of these screens before, but I kind of want to just show you the difference of them right now. And that basically is this is going through all the different Z-scores that we're looking at right now. And, you know, you got your absolute power, you got your relative power, you got all of your different asymmetries that you got going on right here. And then we have all of our different coherences going on right here. And then we got all of our different phases going on right here. So that right there is the reason why that ZScore training isn't as kind of rambunctious as it was with 4 channels. Because we have so many more Z-scores, and it's a lot easier for them to fall within our ranges of our upper and lower. Now, here's another screen that we have on all of our ZOK protocols, but it's only really probably the most useful in 19-channel mode. And that is, these are live maps that are basically displaying the information as training is occurring. You got your different maps that are being produced, and I actually don't like usually having that one on, or my gamma one. I usually just turn those off. They have the least amount of data that it really gives me. But as you can see, it's basically just letting me know everything. It's giving me a good picture or an overview of where the numbers are kind of looking at. You know, what you're going to notice is, of course, right here, your colors are the same. You got your colors palette scale going on right down here. Now, the same color palette scale holds down here. The only thing that's a little bit increased is the higher the numbers get, the thicker those lines get too. So as they get bigger and bigger, you're going to see them kind of growing a little bit in size. And so that's kind of what's going on right there. So this right here is a brief overview of now 19-channel Z-scores from a standard protocol that we had right off the bat. As you can see, there was nothing that really changed going from 4 to 19 channels. We're still doing the exact same style of training, whether we're doing 1 channel or we're doing 19 channels. The U key will be your upper threshold in a PZOK UL, or it will be the main threshold in a ZOK. The C key is going to control the percent of Z-scores that we're looking at, and the L key in a ZOK UL will be your lower threshold. So no matter how many thresholds we change, it's not going to change there. Now, to go even further, you can on the Z-score screen also not only choose how many channels you're training, but what components you're training. As you can see right now, we have trained values of absolute power, relative power. There are no power ratios, so that's why that is checked off. You have asymmetry, coherence, and phase. So if I did not want to do, for example, phase, if I check this box off, you're going to notice that right there the changes. So it goes from 49.59 right here as total surface Z-scores to 34.20. The other place that you have to control your Z-score information is the trained bands area. So each of these basically is a component, about 500 at the total amount, that you can have either checked on or checked off. Now, some recommendations as far as it goes, and this is only from a technical point of view. First of all, the sum band do not use. The sum is more for monitoring in BrainDx. ANI doesn't have a sum band, so you don't have to worry about checking off anything. But with both BrainDx and ANI, what you're going to notice is sometimes a lot of additional bands, which are convenient because they can take a band and break it down into different components. For example, alpha 1 is in BrainDx is 7.7 to 9.7, and alpha 2 is 9.7 to 12.2, I believe. But the alpha band is 7.7 to 12.2. So what's happening is sometimes you're having basically extra Z-scores to train. Yes, the Z-scores are different there, but how effective it is, it might just be extra numbers. A lot of people that I know, and you're going to get some opinions, and it's best to ask kind of on our listserv and all that on it, but a lot of people will just check these off right off the bat. or they'll check off alpha and check on alpha 1 and alpha 2 as independent or as independent bands. And that's just because you're kind of double training the same band. Even though split apart, they have different numbers that go along with it. You are kind of double training a little bit there. But that right there is the basic overview of ZScore training on a surface level. The next thing I do want to get into is something that is only unique to the BrainDx, and that's because with BrainDx we not only have surface Z-scores, but we also have sLORETA Z-scores, which is basically a 3D image or a 3D training of the Z-scores, of course, on live settings. So I'm going to go File, Import Settings. What I'm going to cover right off the bat is actually we have two protocols that we really designed as a default for BrainDx sLORETA. One of them is Z-scores using sLORETA Absolute Power, and one of them is Z-scores using sLORETA PZOK-UL. Z-scores using sLORETA Absolute Power is focusing on a particular region of interest and training that Z-score band to 0. So you're basically focusing on the frontal lobe delta, or you're focusing on the occipital, I'm trying to think, Brodmann area 47 and beta. So you're going to actually focus on a particular region of interest and a particular band, and you're going to train that to 0, or try to train that to 0. Z-scores using sLORETA PZOK upper and lower, on the other hand, is much like our surface training, where what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a larger amount of Z-scores, and we're going to train the percent of Z-scores that are within our range to 0 by basically, or we're going to reward the percent of Z-scores that are within our upper and lower ranges. So the first one I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you a couple neat tricks that we have with this one, is this one right here, Z-scores using sLORETA Absolute Power. So I'm going to double click this one. So now you're going to notice right off the bat that there is not that much of change to the first 2 pages. Acquisition is the same, remontage is the same. ZScore Training, on the other hand, now this is where we're different. Now all of a sudden I got all these different thermometers going on right here. I got this one little graph right here. And I have my head map right here. So let's actually see this in action so we can see a little bit more information and understanding of what is going on exactly with this. All right. So this doesn't usually like simulation, so I'm actually going to stop this right now, because I always forget that simulation, especially with sLORETA, is usually a little too powerful for it. So I'm going to go File, Open EEG File. And I'm going to grab one of my files. Here we go. All right, so now I'm going to play this back with real EEG, and it's going to look a little bit better than that. Sections marked good, play selected EEG, and repeat. Okay, here we go. Now that's looking a little bit more like what we're usually probably used to seeing right here. Okay, so now what's going on this screen, as I said, is now we're looking at something that's a little different right here. Okay, now this turquoise line is not really the percentage of Z-scores that are within a range. That is actually a Z-score for a region of interest. And now in this protocol, to see which one that is, I'm going to hit Control-E to open up my event wizard. And what that is the frontal lobe and delta. So what you're seeing right here popping up and down is the frontal lobe delta. That's jumping up and down, up and down, up and down. And as you can see in our 3D head map, we're actually viewing that too. We're seeing what's going on with it, and we're watching it, and we're watching it kind of pop up and down, and that's what's going on right there. Now you're going to notice that the same controls apply in this one right here. Upper and lower, U key, Shift U key, and then we go right here, lower. lower with the L key. Shift L is going to bring it down like that. It's going to bring it up like that. Or drag it up and down. Now, I'm going to do one other thing because I actually messed up on this protocol that's out there, and I'm going to have to fix this at one point in time. There we go. And we still have our % success. So basically what the % success is measuring on this one is when the actual Z-score itself is within that upper and lower range that we're looking at. It's going to, of course, basically be golden. It's going to reward with a MIDI tone, and it's going to reward on your multimedia player, and it's going to reward with your flash player, and that's how it's going to work. So that's the basic difference between, or that's the basic nutshell of this one right here. Now, let's make this a little bit more how you can do some different things with this. You can change the region of interest to whatever you want that is a region of interest in our system, which we have all frontal lobe, or we have all lobes, all gyri, we have Brodmann areas, and we have a special new feature of some network hubs that are also available actually for the single region of interest training. To go through all the different names of them, they are all right here. Now you gotta ask yourself, how am I supposed to know what to put in? Well, if I open up my event wizard, there are 3 different ways to bring up these functions. One of them, and I should have had this opened up right now already. Let me get right here. All right, here we go. BrainAvatar, sLORETA, regions of interest. This is probably the easiest way to know what each thing is. There are 3 different implementations and 1 new special implementation. This is the region of interest name. So for example, the frontal lobe. You can train the region of interest of the frontal lobe 3 different ways. The original implementation is 1. The next implementation, the indexed implementation as it's called, is 1001. And then the graphical user interface implementation is ROI frontal lobe. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does that mean? Well, okay, when we're looking at X equals Loretta ROI zap, there is the region of interest is defined right here in this first area, and the band that you're training is defined right here. So if I go right here, and I type in the number 1, well, we know that according to our screen right here, the frontal lobe, the original implementation means the frontal lobe equals 1. So now we know we're training the frontal lobe. Or the indexed implementation is 1001, which means we're also training the frontal lobe. Then the final implementation, let's see if this works for me, is by holding the pound key, hit shift and 3, it's going to bring me up this dialog box right here. This dialog box basically lists them all. ROI Hagmans, ROI DMN1 and DMN2, all the Brodmann areas, all the gyri, and all the frontal lobes, and I know that the GUI interface of it is going to be ROI frontal lobe. And then now I know I'm also training the frontal lobe. So that's how you would do that. Now, because there's a lot going on in this protocol right here, one of the things that we've added as a brand new feature is the ability to not just use, kind of your noggin to basically choose, okay, well, I want to train this today and I want to train this today, especially with this protocol. You're going to have to change the region of interest and the band in 4 different event wizards. I'm sorry, I tried to make it a lot easier for you guys, but that's the only way I could get the best results out of it. So now, as opposed to having to change this every single time you would want to change something like that, we built in new features. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to type in select ROI. And I'm going to type in select band. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is, and I'm going to hit Control C, I'm going to actually save this over all my other ones so that everything is the same. Select ROI and select ROI band, or select ROI and select band. What they do is they work with the actual head map that you have displayed on this screen right here, and it will change the component and the region of interest on the fly for training based on what you're actually viewing right here. So to explain it a little bit better, let's see it. Oh, I know why it's doing that. I'm in playback mode. So let's play back my file again, because that's going to be the easiest one. Alright, so I'm going to double click. I'm going to play only sections marked good. Play selected EEG. And now that we're playing this, we're going to go to this tab right here, and that looks similar to exactly what we were seeing before. You're going to see the pop-up, and you're going to see it go down, and then you're going to see it go up a little bit. So this, as you know, basically is doing the frontal lobe delta as we were seeing before. Now with Select ROI built in, watch, I'm going to switch this. You see how you got a little bit of a change going on right now? Those numbers aren't quite as high. Well, now we're looking at the occipital lobe. And now we are actually training the occipital lobe, and we're training the delta. Now, what if I switch this to beta? You're going to notice it changed even more. It's moving basically a little bit quicker up and down more and more. That's because right now what I'm using is those components that I put in of select band and select ROI are basically taking whatever I'm selecting right here, and they are training it. That is the value coming in. So, what's nice about Select ROI and Select ROI band is that you don't have to remember, oh, I'm training this with this person today, so I'm going to have to go in and train it, change it in all 4 of my events. You don't have to do it. You can go, all right, let's go. We're going to train this right here. The thing to be careful about is going through and just kind of clicking around and changing what you are training. That could be not as applicable or not too good depending on who you're working with. You want to basically make sure you're always training what you're training and you know what you're training. So if you're basically using this more as a graphic to basically let them look at something and you're just basically doing the training over here, Select ROI and Select Band aren't good for you. But if you're going to utilize it to basically know this is what you're training today, please focus on this. Please, make the green jello. Then this is going to be very powerful for that. All right, so those are new features. Now, just so all of you guys aren't out there and going and taking the protocol that I opened up and, doing all these different changes to it and then going to call me back up later and say, well, it's not working right now because we changed it and I don't remember what exactly I did. Just so you know ahead of time, if I go to www.brainm.com, and I go to my BrainMaster's software downloads and updates, and I go to BrainAvatar software downloads and updates, and I go right here to additional downloads and general protocols. I have already developed one that you can go and download. ZScores using sLORETA Absolute Power 3D Head Map Select. It gives you a basic description about it, and then if you go down here, this is where the protocol is located. It is ZScore, yep, right here, this one right here. What you're going to do is you're going to download it. Well, let's walk through what you're going to do with these protocols that you find right here. I'm going to click it. And as you can see, it's going to give me some different options right here. I'm going to choose Save File. Oh, and my download is complete. Now, each computer is going to be a little different where things are located, but most likely it's going to be located in the Downloads folder. So now here's my protocol right here, which I'm going to hit Control X to cut. And I'm going to go C drive, Program Data, BrainMaster, Settings, Discovery Protocol, and I'm going to hit Control V to paste. So now I have an easy to grab head map select protocol that does exactly what I was just describing right there. All right. So now that we've gone in depth about the absolute power version of it, let's now go through the sLORETA PZOK UL version, because there are some differences between Surface and sLORETA. Not as many as you would think, but there are. So I'm going to go right here. Okay, so far off the bat, after I loaded it, you're not going to notice that much of a difference. Once again, acquisition. Once again, remontage. Now this is a little different. This is just a head display right here. It's just an empty, lonely little head that's sitting here. That's a little black right now, but once we get it going, it's going to change. We got our ZScore Training, which looks exactly like ZOKUL. And then we got our ZScore Monitor page, which has absolutely nothing in it. So let's start going through things. I'm just going to go to the ZScore page, Control-Z, because there is nothing on the acquisition we need to change. You always, for ZScores, or for sLORETA ZScores, you always need to acquire 19 channels. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you do not acquire 19 channels, you are doing it wrong and you're getting a wrong answer. So you must always, always, always acquire 19 channels. So if you're opening up this protocol, don't even touch this page. So we're just going to go right to the ZScore page, and you're going to notice one difference right off the bat. Well, you're going to notice a couple of them. One, you're going to notice that Voxel EEG is checked right here. That's because that's what, when we say sLORETA, we might also say voxels, and we might say a couple other terms. But voxels is referring to those little tiny little squares that you see in the head map. That is defined as a voxel. It's about 5 millimeters in size, and there's about 5,700 of them in the head. That's how the head's been kind of dissected down to do the sLORETA processing. Now you're also going to notice that right here, all of these are grayed out, and the only thing that's applicable right here is, oh sorry, you're right, Dr. Gennardi, it's 6,200, 6,239 to be exact. But what you're going to notice right here is that Brodmann is checked. And now if I uncheck it, that all disappears. And if I uncheck this, that complete thing disappears right there. So once again, if I check Voxel EEG, and I check Brodmann, now what I can do is I can select regions of interest and utilize those for training for my sLORETA ZScore training. So this is different than the Surface. Now how is it different? Well, with the region of interest training, we've given a little bit more flexibility. First of all, you can still basically, much like the sites here, you can choose the region of interest you want to select. You have a left region of interest of it, and you have a right region of interest of it. So if you only want to train the frontal lobe on the left-hand side, all you have to train is the frontal lobe on the left-hand side. If you only want to train the fusiform gyrus on the right-hand side, you only have to train it on the right-hand side. And that's one of the differences right there. Another thing you're going to notice on this screen is that, okay, well, it's saying right here I'm training on the left, I'm training delta 1, delta theta, alpha, beta, some, beta 2, gamma, alpha 1, alpha 2. What if I don't want to train all of those? Well, we have given you the capabilities of basically now not only giving you the controls of left or right, but going at a deeper level and choosing only portions or only certain bands to really do the LZT training. Now, I want you to notice right off the bat that ROI is showing 20 total right now because I'm doing one right ROI and one left ROI, and I'm doing all 10 bands. But watch when I right-click on here, I'm going to bring up this menu. And this menu is going to allow me to deselect different bands that I may or may not want to train. So now I've deselected 3 bands, and now you're going to notice my ROI is down 3 bands as well. So you have the capability of, even if you wanted to train both the left and right, to make your left a little bit more, a little bit more direct than your right. You can do the right all 10 bands and the left only 7 bands, or 4 bands, or 1 band. And it gives you kind of that flexibility. Now, another thing you might be getting into is looking at this and going, you know what, I really want to do all regions of interest. I want to do them all. I want to do all 10 bands. I just want to go. I just want to try and train everything to normal. This is going to be a little burdened if I'm going to go through here and click every single thing all and on. So as opposed to doing that, I'm going to click this, and I'm going to hold my Shift key down, and I'm going to go all the way down to Broadband 2. As you can see, that's enabled all of them. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to click that on, hold the Shift key down, go down. That's an easy, quick way to turn things on or off. So I'm going to click again, hold the Shift key down, and go up. I'm going to click again, hold the Shift key down, and go up. So have no fear about something being a little overburdened or anything like that. There are tools that we've been given, or we give you on there, that allow you to do different things. Actually, I think that is also going to work. No, it's not. I'm going to talk to them about having specially chosen things to have controls on there. So to see things that are going on with this, let's select a couple ROIs. I'm not going to go too in-depth on my choices or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of choose a couple of them. We got 60 ROIs. I'm going to hit Use These Settings and Close. So now you're going to see on this list right here, they're displayed now. Where before it was empty because we didn't have any selected. Now that we've selected them, now we're going to be able to do what we want to do on that one. But I'm also going to now go File, Open EEG File. Double click, playback, play selected, and repeat. Whatever, it's playing the whole thing, that's okay. So now here we're going to see our Z-scores kind of coming in and rolling. Now here we go. This screen is exactly the same what you're used to. You got your upper threshold, you got your lower threshold. You can adjust your upper. You can adjust your C. The only real difference right here is now, of course, we got the head map that is showing the voxel information. All right. So that's the biggest difference right there, and those are some different controls. Now, I'm going to show you guys a protocol that has just kind of started to go into development. I got it pretty much done. I just kind of want to run some testing on it before it really gets released to the masses. But it's going to go up and it's going to be available in that area where we were talking about. One of the things you got with our Voxel EEG right now is that we only have the capabilities of doing absolute power. At the moment, we don't have the abilities to do connectivities or anything like that. So, I've come up with a protocol that combines Surface ZScore connectivities with absolute power sLORETA training. And that is maybe on here. Let's go to Discovery Protocols. Let's see. There it is. ZScore is using sLORETA plus Surface PZOKUL. So I'm going to double click that. Once again, not much of a difference right here. Except you're going to notice one extra little bit or one little extra thermometer. And you're going to notice on our ZScore Monitor page, you're going to have a whole lot of different things. Not only are you going to have all of those, but you're going to have additional regions of interest. So I'm going to hit Control Z, which is going to bring up my menu. So now we're going to notice that this is completely different than what we're used to seeing right here. Not only is Voxel EEG selected, but Surface EEG is selected as well. And now we're going to notice that these aren't grayed out, and that's not grayed out, and you can choose the different portions of it. For this protocol right now, I'm only focusing on the asymmetry, coherence, and phase to go along with this. And you're going to notice right here that it combines the two Z-scores together. Surface is 4617, ROI is 25, and the total is 4642. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this bad boy in action. I'm going to go File, Open EEG File. I'm going to go to my file. And double click. I'm going to go playback. I'm going to go only sections marked good. Play selected and repeat. All right, now you're going to notice there are 2 additional lines in here. You got one, of course, our right here. This one right here is our ZScore one. This is our Surface ZScore one, kind of going up and down right here. And the lighter kind of blue one right here. Or no, I'm sorry, my apologies. The turquoise one right here is our sLORETA ZScores. So that's the one that's a little jumpy, and it's a little jumpy because we have 25 total ZScores. So of course there's going to be a little bit more play. And then you got this nice smoother one, which is a lighter color. It's kind of like a light blue. That is our connectivity Surface ZScores. That is now the way that this protocol is kind of working right now. Is it's basically saying when both are successful, you're going to get a reward, and that's where this percent success is basically coming into. Both are successful. It's kind of going up. It's going up. It's going up. The way I've designed this protocol right now, and I'm going to play around with it, that's why I'm saying it's not available right now, is basically I have a dual MIDI reward on it. When one of them is above, you get one sound is basically an organ that goes for, you know, as a sustained level. When both are successful, you're going to hear a louder organ at a higher tone that's going to basically tell you, okay, well, they're both being rewarded. Of course, when both are being rewarded, MMP will work perfectly fine, your Flash player will work perfectly fine, any third-party games will work perfectly fine. Everything's just going to kind of work. Now, the one thing with this protocol you're going to notice is that, well, I have 2 thresholds, now I'm going to have to control them both for it. No, the C key controls it for both. So you do not have to worry about that. Also, the upper threshold controls for both of them. Same with the lower threshold. So you got all metric or all matrices being controlled are going to control the final outcome of the training. All right. And so, like I said, when this protocol is going to be available, and I'm hoping to get it released soon, I want some clinicians to actually double check it more before I say it's going to do what I want it to do. As I'm a technician, I'm kind of, I have theories on how things should work and how they should be, but I cannot actually give any technical advice, so a clinician will probably be looking at this before it actually gets sent out for demonstration purposes. But that's the technical kind of backing of the Z-scores. As you can see, for the most part, most controls are exactly the same. Whether you're doing Surface, whether you're doing sLORETA, whether you're doing both, upper is going to be, or U is going to be your upper threshold. L is going to be your lower threshold. C is going to usually be your constant control for a percentage of Z-scores, or at least if you have percents of Z-scores on it. If you do not, then you just have to worry about your upper and lower and getting it within that range. Whenever you do a change, make sure you double check. And that's really the only things I really have to say on that. So as I have kind of wrapped up, and I notice a lot of you guys have been leaving and all that, and I understand it's getting good late over here. Can I ask you guys have any questions on anything? I saw a couple of them, but if you guys can kind of repeat them, that would help out. Amplitude is not checked in the last protocol. What Z-scores are the sLORETA training? All right, so let's see if I can try and break that down. Okay, what are you talking about? The last protocol that I had open there, Lauren? I'm checking amplitude. Where exactly are you saying? Are you talking about this Broadman if this isn't checked? Yes, I'm in the combined protocol right now. Oh, you're talking about this absolute power? If that's not checked? Aha, okay. See, this is where we got a little difference, you know, of understanding truly what's going on right here. These trained values, absolute power, relative power, power ratios, asymmetry, coherence, and phase, only affect sites. So they only affect FP1, F3, C3, P3, O1, F7, yada, yada, yada. When it comes to Voxel EEG, once I check Broadman, I am automatically doing absolute power to any of the sites that or any of the regions of interest that I'm choosing here. That is what's dictating that I'm doing the absolute power training on it. Does that make sense? All right, excellent. That's what I like to hear. Okay, now, Dan Abbott, I believe you were saying, what's the difference, or is there a difference between C3, C4, or C4, C3? No, they're the same metrics. And it doesn't matter if it's C3 to C4 or C4 to C3. Most people usually flow to C3 to C4. But you know, I mean, it really doesn't matter because it's the same. The connectivity metrics doesn't change due to grammar, as far as that goes. Debbie, all right, let's see. When using head map voxels, can you choose sum? Yes, you can. Sum is an interesting band, and I'm just going to say it like that. Sum is basically a wideband. And you're sometimes going to get really high numbers out of it. And that's all I can say. Yes, you can choose it. I don't recommend it for training. But the sum band, it might be a little bit higher, but absolutely you can use it on the head map. I would not use it for training, though. Can you use voxels in the non-Loretta protocols? You absolutely can, Dan or Debbie. Voxels actually come in two forms, and we do have an ISurface ZScore that does do region of interest training to the amplitude setting. If I go File, Import Settings, I go to my Discovery Protocols, you're going to see it right here. ZScores PZOK-UL with ROI ANI, which basically the only difference between them is now you have the amplitude training that you're doing, and you're dealing with an amplitude metric going up and down. So basically you can either uptrain or you can downtrain. Much like the head map choose select one right there, I actually do have developed for both ROI, amplitude, ANI, and BrainDx a head map select portion that you can download here. And what you're going to do is you're going to train the current source density, which the current source density is referring to basically nanoamperes per cubic millimeter, and is basically like microvoltage if you were training at FP1. That is correct, Lauren. What that network hub is basically covering is now the power that's in the entire hub, all those connections that are going along with it. So it's not really doing a connectivity training as a network hub. It's doing the overall power of it and the Z-score that's tied to that overall power or the current source density of it. Does that make sense? Would voxels be indicating Z-scores in non-Loretta protocols? If you are using a non-sLORETA protocol, and I go right here, basically Z-scores can come in and you can use the head map to display Z-scores, you know, source acquired. Here, I think I know what you're trying to get to. This protocol right here is a region of interest amplitude training, and I believe that this is ANI. Let me double check. Okay, ANI is not a good example. Let me go to a BrainDx one. All right, so here we go. Here's my little map. Here's my, screen right here. Now, technically, I'm doing, and you can tell right here, I'm doing region of interest. I'm doing current source density training on this training right here. I'm not doing Z-score training. You can still view Z-scores on this head map right here if you really want to. If you switch to the source to Z-scores. Now, before this is fully going to work, you need to make sure that you are allowing Voxel EEG to come in. You don't need to go to Broadman and you don't need to turn on anything like that, but you need to make sure Voxel EEG is checked on. If Voxel EEG is checked on, then you're able to look at the Z-score data coming in, and you actually aren't training the Voxel EEG sLORETA. You're still training the amplitude. The event wizard tells it what you're going to train. You're just basically giving it the tools in the other portions to basically train with it. So does that make sense? Did I get that across for you? Okay, well, let's have a look real quick at that. I did not know that that should have any effect on it, but let's just go right here. I'm going to go back into it. Make sure I'm in simulation. And I'm going to hit go, and I'm going to double check. You know, that may have something to do with it. I didn't know of that to have an effect on it. Yes, the network hub training is absolute power training. They are basically taking the overall absolute power of that location. It is not a connectivity measurement. All right, so let's have a look. No, it's coming in. As I said, this number is very, very high. And that's one of the things that really fears on, or that's one of the reasons I don't really use it as a metric. ZScore sum, if I go here back to my ZScore screen, I don't have sum checked on here. So the number is coming in. I just don't have it being displayed on that. So I'm not sure exactly what happened on that, Debbie. What you may need to do is call in over here, and we might need to take a look at it to see what's going on exactly. You can choose a component that isn't selected. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. For voxel stuff, yes, absolutely, because voxels are independent to surface. The surface, when we go back here again, the only thing that is tied to Voxel EEG is this tab right here, Broadman. This then tells you what you're going to train at the PCOK UL level. That's it. The trained bands are only tied to the sites right here. The trained values are only tied to the sites right here. The only thing that controls Voxel EEG is that you have Voxel EEG checked and that you have Broadman if you're doing PCOK training checked. That's it. So you can have things that aren't checked on, or you can have things that aren't checked on in the trained bands here. You're going to be able to view those in the Voxel EEG. The only time you can't do something like that is you can't really view a map, or you can't really view ZScore numbers that you have checked off. So, for example, on this one right here, if we go to our ZScore Monitor page, you're going to notice that some band is nowhere here anywhere. That's because we aren't training it. That is the reason. So, yes, with Voxel EEG, as far as that goes, you can look at you can view different things that might be checked off in different areas. Okay? Why can't you see SMR in voxels? Well, that is because what you're defining as SMR is not one of the bands that BrainDx is built on. You see, BrainDx, and let's go right here. It was developed with these bands in mind. So while the SMR band 12 to 15 might be something that you might want to view, it's not something that's defined for the voxels to be able to utilize. So that's why you can't view them in the voxels. Now, if you were doing standard training, non-BrainDx Z-scores, you could be able to see the SMR in the voxels. But when you're doing BrainDx, BrainDx kind of takes over, because of what we do, BrainDx takes over, and it has to be in the voxel area. Okay? Thank you very much for joining, guys. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and take care.